Shalom, shalom, shalom to everyone watching. This is Rabbi Mashiach, continuing this thought of Mashiach 6000. We're going to take a look at 5 ways to build emunah, 5 ways to build emunah faith. The Ismaelite exile, which is the one we are currently in, is a result of lack of faith, lack of emunah. Our response at this unique time in history, the Messianic era, which is upon us, must be to strengthen our faith, our emunah. Let's describe the 5 ways to build Jewish faith in God and His Torah. The first principle, contemplating the world and discovering its Creator. Abraham called it the source of faith. He was the first person in history to disseminate the belief in God among mankind. He attained the belief despite growing up in an idolatrous household, the son of a man whose business was the sale of idols, of images. Abraham contemplated the creation and wisdom concealed within it and concluded that there is a Creator, just as the garments attest to the existence of a tailor who sewed it, and the table to the existence of a carpenter who made it. And so Abraham understood the creation attests to the Creator who fashioned it. And if we look all around us carefully, we will see that there are fixed laws of nature and creation. This allows us to arrive at a clear conclusion. There is a lawgiver who fixed these laws, and every law that has a lawgiver behind its promulgation. Take income tax. Oh gosh, income tax. Hopefully soon we will no longer have any income tax to pay if Trump has his way. It is a law passed by a government body. The very existence of a law of this sort confirms that there is a legislative body that passes the laws necessary for the country's continued efficient functioning. So too regarding the laws of nature. The very existence of such laws strongly indicates a God who created these laws. But it's not only the laws of nature that test to the Creator's existence. The infinite wisdom that exists in every component of creation also attests to an awe-inspiring Creator, unique in every aspect. Take, for example, the phenomenon of plant growth, which begins with the rotting and decomposition of a seed. And look at the wealth of colors and sunsets and winters and summers, the cycles of the moon, of the rotation of the earth, the human body, the process of pregnancy and childbirth. Essentially every aspect of life that surrounds man. It's wonderful. But we take them for granted because we are used to them. The way each organ of the body functions is fascinating and arouses amazement at the tremendous wisdom it entails. They have not. And today, despite all the advances in science, scientists admit that they are not yet succeeded in understanding even a tiny fraction of the wisdom of the creation. There remains an endless amount to be researched in every field. As Job said about this, out of my flesh I see God. Job chapter 19, verse 26. The prophet said, raise your eyes high and see who created these. Isaiah 40, verse 26. How manifold are your creations, Lord. You made them all with wisdom, with chokhmah. Tehillim or Psalms 104, 24. Man's main problem is routine and habituation, which tends to cover the truth and hide it from view. The Hebrew word for world, olam, has the same root as the world as concealment. Why should this be? Isn't our world out in open in plain view? But we must understand that the truth it contains that the world has a Creator. It concealed the routine. This is why the 2 words are related. For example, the generation after Exodus from Egypt was born in Sinai's desert. Today we can see that this is the area without natural spring, poor in vegetation, and the Jewish people of that early era were born into a miraculous situation. They received their food from heaven and their water from boulders. Despite this obvious miraculous miracle nature in their circumstances. When 40 years of wandering in the desert came to an end, and Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, told them that the manna would cease, and that in the land of Israel food would grow from the ground. In other words, enough of the miraculous substance. Now it's time to dig and to do your part. And it was to this end that Moshe Rabbeinu told them that manna would cease from the land of Israel and would grow from the ground. And they were astonished. How could a decaying seed yield food? For that generation, food growing from the ground looked like a miracle comparable to splitting the seed, for they had never seen food growing from the ground. Its main duty to clear away the smokescreen of habituation, to set off a journey of understanding and experience, of fascination and edification. Truth shall sprout from the ground. Psalms chapter 85, verse 12. Will man rise to the challenge? The Chazon Ish explains this in fine detail, that this phenomenon of man's habituation to seemingly natural miracles around him. We read, if a person is spiritually inclined, and perhaps to be in a moment of serenity, free of hunger, of desire, if his eyes is electrified by the view of heaven on high and the depth of the earth, he is moved and shocked. For the world seems to him like an unsolvable, concealed, wondrous enigma. For his heart has been seen much of what can be carefully discerned beneath the sun. Those whose aspects of existence that shows clearly that the world that confronts him was constructed with a plan that was worked on and figured out from way before, in advance. If a wise engineer drew the plans for the world before it was created, that you'll read in Emunah Vitachon, chapter 1, verse 1. A person who's free of materialistic craving can readily see the infinite wisdom and the endless beauty of creation. From this he will draw tangible belief in the existence of God. Let's take a look at the second principle. Signs, wonders, and supernatural occurrence. The ultimate purpose of the 10 plagues in Egypt and the splitting of the Red Sea, which we will be looking at during this week of Passover, is one of blessing. Blessed is he who brought against Egypt and was to reveal that it's possible to see the power of God through changes in the forces of nature, in addition to its normal laws. The Torah states at the beginning of Parashat Bo, Hashem said to Moshe, the Lord said to Moses, go to Pharaoh, because I have made his heart heavy, and the heart of his servants, so that I may put these signs of mine in his midst, and so that they will tell you into your ears of your sons and your sons' sons how I afflicted Egypt, and the signs I did against them. Notice the word against them. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord. Exodus chapter 10, verse 1 through 2. Even at the time of the Exodus from Egypt, there were those who thought that the world came into existence on its own. Deja vu, huh? The splitting of the Red Sea proved the existence of a Creator, who then, when he so wills it, the water flows, and when he so wills it, they stand like a wall in the middle of the sea. If there were no creators, could water act contrary to its inherent quality, nature, and stand like a solid object? And if so, how did the waters revert to its usual liquid state precisely when the Egyptians were going through the path in the sea, and the Israelites were already on the opposite shore? This could only happen if someone was orchestrating those wondrous events. The reaction of the nations living in the vicinity is described in the Torah. Then the chieftains of Edom panicked. Why would they panic? They were seeing something supernatural, perhaps? Then the chieftains of Edom panicked. The strong men of Moab were seized by trembling, and the inhabitants of Canaan melted. dread and terror fell upon them. Exodus chapter 15, verse 15 through 16. At the beginning of Sefer Yehoshua, you can see that in Spanish. I did the whole series of Sefer Yehoshua in Spanish. Rahab tells the spies who were sent as messengers of Yehoshua, "That dread of you has fallen upon us, and all the inhabitants of the land have melted before you. For we have heard that the Lord dried the waters of the Red Sea before you. We heard, and our hearts melted. No man's spirit could rise any longer from before you, for the Lord your God is a God in heaven above and on earth." Yehoshua chapter 2, verse 9 through 11. 40 years after the event, mankind still trembled at the thought of splitting of the Red Sea. From the wondrous suspension of the laws of nature, this miraculous demonstrated that there is a Creator, that there is He who rules over the world and nature. Let's take a look at the third principle. All this to build our faith in the one God, not a Trinity, not a multiplicity. The third principle is because He spoke with you face to face. You're face to face. The first two principles we've mentioned require man to build his faith through his own resource, be it through contemplation of the creation or recognition of miracles that fall outside the laws of nature. The third way to strengthen faith is contemplation of the revelation at Sinai. The third way is essentially different from the two, for it involves not only belief, but actual knowledge. That is, it involves knowledge based on seeing. Witnesses who have seen a particular event know that it occurred. They don't merely believe it happened. They saw it happen. This is how things transpired. God elevated those who departed from Egypt, several millions in number, to the highest level of prophecy, of Nebuah. Now, comparable to that, Moshe Rabbeinu, they had privilege of hearing the first two commandments. I am the Lord your God, and you will have no other gods before me. Directly from the mouth of God. What do you mean mouth of God? Does God have a mouth? No, we'll take a look at that later. You will have no other gods before me, directly from God's mouth. The nation as a whole attained a level of knowledge in contrast to belief. As it says, and you shall know today and take to your heart that the Lord is God in heaven above and on the earth below. There is no other, no one else, no, not a man in a human form. There is no other. Devarim 4:39, or Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 39. In the same vein, we read, "For the Lord spoke with you face to face, present to presence." Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 4. "Take care and guard your soul intensely, lest you forget the things your eyes saw." Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 9. "And you were shown so that you should know." This is da'at. You should know. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 35. The implication here is very simple. You were present, I was present, and having seen for yourselves, you know, and do not need to rely on the faith alone. You saw me, as it were. From the moment we know without a doubt that God exists, even a false prophet performs wonders to prove the opposite, they won't convince us. God's existence is as much a fact as the existence of the sun and the moon. This reality does not change, even if there were wonders that seem to indicate just the contrary. Let's take a look at the fourth principle, very important principle. Future events predicted in the Torah that has come true. Imagine a child who asks his father, how does the weatherman know the future when he gives us the weather forecast? Father will answer, well, that since the weather follows certain natural laws, man has been able to keep track of these patterns for many years. It is no problem to prophesy the future, so to speak. This is indeed the case. Man today has at its disposal sophisticated satellites and other devices by means by which he can tell if a cloud that is presently over Europe is making its way to Israel, and to determine precisely when it will get there and give its blessed rain. However, these forecasts are limited to the range of several days. Man's ability to deal with the future is limited. Aside from this, man can never predict how people will act. Forecasting, as we know, is limited to a natural phenomenon, which man knows about through amassing information and the past. Human behavior is unpredictable, since man possesses free will. The author of the Torah is free of these two limitations. The Torah predicts events thousands of years in advance, and all of these predictions focus on things that people will do. Anyone who contemplates this must conclude that the author of the Torah controls creation and human behavior. He is the creator of the world. Several predictions as such. Bear in mind. The Western Wall. Behold, this stands behind our wall, looking through the windows, peeking through the cracks, as it says in the Songs of Solomon. The Songs of Songs, chapter 2, verse 9, in the Midrash Rabbah, composed about 1800 years ago, says that the verse refers to the Western Wall. Despite all of Israel's enemy, who will attack Jerusalem and destroy it, no harm will befall this wall. Stated. This is confirmed by history, from the time of the destruction of the Second Temple to our own time, throughout all the battles that have been fought over Jerusalem, throughout all 9 times that it had been destroyed. The Western Wall remains miraculously standing on its foundations. It is easily understood that the author of this midrash could not have come to the conclusion through his own intellect. Instead, the knowledge came from the Creator, either passed through the generation or perceived with the human divine inspiration. Babylon. The prophets Yeshayahu and Yirmiyahu described Babylon as the capital city of Babylon, as a city that will be eternally desolate. It will never be built. Tents will not be pitched there. Shepherds will not encamp in it. Babylon will sink and never rise, says Jeremiah 51, verse 64. It will be eternally uninhabitable, and no one will live there from generation to generation. No Arab will pitch his tent there, and the shepherds will not have the flocks lie there. Isaiah chapter 13, verse 20. These are predictions about human behavior through the span of millennia. Today, no visitor to what was once called Babylonia can help but wonder why these cities, Babylon, has not been rebuilt for thousands of years. It is common to rebuild new cities on the ruins of ancient ones, or at least to make the ruins a tourist attraction. Yet, till this day, nothing has been built on the site of the ancient Babylon. While there have been many buildings in the surrounding area, the city itself remains in ruin. These are neither tents nor shepherds, neither buildings nor tourists. It's exactly as Jeremiah and Isaiah prophesied. Israel's security. Israel signed a peace accord with the Arabs, yet they continue to wage war against it and kill Israel. The vision of peace, which was set out with the idea of land for peace, has blown up in the faces of those who envisioned it. It is in this situation that the illogical could not have been easily foreseen. King David wrote in Psalms, "Woe to me, for I have dwelt among the tents of Kedar." And you may ask yourself, who are the dwellers of Kedar? Take a look at that. Very important to understand who are the tent dwellers of Kedar. That is, woe to me for being a neighbor of a tent-dwelling people called Kedar, one of the 12 sons of Ishmael, as we mentioned earlier, the generic term for the Arab people who live in the desert. Why does King David say, "Woe to me"? Why is he saying this? because my soul has dwelt along with those who hate. Here's the key word again. We're talking about Sinat Hate. These people hate Shalom. My soul, says King David, hate. I dwelled with people who hate peace. There's no way of getting along with them. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. These words attest to the tendencies among the so-called Palestinians, which are nothing but, by and large, Arabs' tendency to abide by agreements that they have signed, because in their own religion they're allowed to break away from contractual obligations. They don't look at contracts the way you and I, that we have to abide by them. No. They're made to be broken. They're made to be able to follow them. Why? Because the imams in the mosque continues to preach about the territories that are still conquered by the Jews and encourage Muslims to go out and kill them. That's the reality of today. The prediction, too, deals with the human behavior thousands of years before the fact. This is why you can't make any peace treaty. You can't deal with any of those quote-unquote Palestinians, because they're not going to abide by any rules. Look at what they teach their children. Just take a look. Take time to instruct yourselves. What is their educational system for the children if it's not hate, not destruction? Well, let's take a look at the fifth principle, the eternity of the Jewish people. When a French prince met German Kaiser once asked the other, "Bring me proof that God exists." He answered, "The existence of the Jewish people to this day is the strongest proof that God exists." And many thinkers have written about the wonders of the enduring existence of the Jewish people. Mark Twain, famous writer, wrote, "If the statistics are right, the Jews constitute but 1% of the human race, and it suggests a nebulous dim puff of stardust lost in the blaze of the Milky Way. Properly, the Jews ought hardly to be heard of, but he is heard of and always been heard of. He is as prominent on the planet as any people, and his contribution to the world list of great names and are also way out of proportion to the weakness of his numbers. He has made marvelous fight in this world in all of the ages, and he has done it with his hands tied behind him. He could be vain of himself and be excused for it. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians rose, and they filled the planet with sounds and splendor, then faded to the dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Romans followed and made a vast noise, and they are gone altogether with people who have sprung up and held their torch high for the time, but it burnt out. They sit in twilight now. Or they have vanished. The Jews saw them all, and they beat them all. And it is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, nor weakening of his parts, nor showing his energies to the dulling of the alert. All things are mortal but the Jews. All other forces passes, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality, if it's not God? The Russian philosopher Nikolai Berdyaev, from 1874 to 1948, writes in his book The Meaning of History, "To the Jews belong an absolutely extraordinary role in the origin of this perception of history, an intense feeling of historic destiny, namely the start of historic was introduced into the worldwide life of mankind by the Jews. The Jews have a central significance in history. The Jewish people are predominantly a people of history, and in their historic destiny is felt that the inscrutability of the divine decrees. When a materialistic sense of history attracted me when I was trying to test for the destiny of the people, it seemed to me that the historical destiny of the Jewish people was the greatest obstacle to it. From the perspective of materialistic, this destiny is completely inexplicable. It must be said that from any materialistic or positivistic historical point of view, this people should have ceased to exist. Its existence is strange, mysterious, and wonderful phenomena, which shows that the special designs are connected with the destiny of this people. In commemoration of the miracle of the committed existence of the Jewish people, despite all who have oppressed it and wished to destroy it, time and time again, for thousands of years, the sages established the festival of Purim. It is neither the only festival nor even the central festival of Judaism, but is the only one which serves as a testimony to the absolute eternity of the nation of Israel, and it will be celebrated eternally. And God promises, so beautiful, God promises us that despite all of this, while they were in the land of their enemies, I will not be revolted by them, nor will I reject them to obliterate them, to annul my covenant with them, for I am the Lord their God. Who is the Lord their God? It is the God of the Torah. Vayikra 26 verse 44. The Jewish people will never be forsaken, for God is with all of Israel until God comes and regathers his people to his land and rejoice and dance once again in the land called Eretz Israel with the Jewish people. I hope you enjoyed all of this that we talked about. There's still more to come. Mashiach 6000 could be today. Mashiach can be revealed. The temple can be rebuilt. All of this is real and as accessible to us as even our own breath. It's wonderful to be living in this generation where we can see the rebuilding of the temple in our days, and may it happen soon. May a leader such as Trump rise to the occasion and call on the nations of the world to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, which was a source of blessing to the whole entire world, not only to the Jewish people. Shalom, shalom, and a lot of blessings to all of you.